May it please the court. Counsel? One drop of purity, drowned by 2 drops of sin. Jealousy, justice, pride, and greed. Nancy Mason, Frank Norton, Don Winston. Members of the jury, let us take a moment to remember the victim in this case, Nancy Mason, more commonly known as Bunny to her family and friends for her sweet and loving personality. This picture of her chopped up, bloody and bruised hand is all I'm able to show you. Her parents had to bury this hand. This hand which wrote a farewell, see you soon email to her girlfriends just before her New Year's Eve trip. In that last email she wrote, she was going someplace up north. And now we know her body lies south of here at the bottom of Canyon Lake. Justice requires that you find the defendant guilty. Because for justice to be served, we must convict the pinky and the brain of this operation. This contract to kill, this dirty deed that the defendant had too much pride to do himself. But conveniently for him, he knew Frank Norton, who was just greedy enough to do it for $5,000. The defendant, Don Winston, has been charged with murder. In order for you to find him guilty, we, the state, had a burden to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant intentionally, that is with the intent to cause, and knowingly, that is with knowledge that his conduct was reasonably certain to cause, the death of Nancy Mason by hiring Frank Norton to kill her. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you firmly convinced the defendant is guilty. Now, there's very few things in this world that we know with absolute certainty. And criminal law cases do not require that type of proof, that proof which would overcome every possible doubt. That's not what we have here. And the state has proven that burden throughout this trial, through the presentation of testimony and evidence that it all began when the defendant started pressuring his girlfriend, Bunny, to settle down and get married. And she just didn't feel comfortable with him anymore. She told him she needed space, she needed time to think it through for herself, by herself. So she moved out of the defendant's home and back in with her parents. That was in November. And as the weeks passed, the defendant kept reaching out to her, calling her, pressuring her to return back to him. In the spirit of Christmas, Bunny agreed to have an evening meal with him on December 25th. And again, the defendant harassed her, and they had a fight in that restaurant. And Bunny got up, and she left the defendant for the last time when she walked out the doors of that restaurant. When I cross-examined the defendant, he told you himself. She said she needed time. I did not want to give her that time. I wanted her back immediately. And that's why he got up, back to his home, and typed up his contract to kill, and emailed it to his boating buddy, Frank Norton. Badass Frank Norton also took the stand, and he told you himself that he's a convicted felon for beating up his ex-girlfriend. No one here is going to deny that he's a badass, and that's exactly why the defendant's pride chose him to carry out the deed. Let's take another look at that contract. From the defendant to Frank Norton. It's that time. Hey, buddy, it's that time to do your thing. She's leaving me for some bubba. Remember, I need to know for certain that the deed has been done. Give me a hand on this, okay? Frank accepts this offer and begins performance by inviting Bunny to a New Year's Eve trip somewhere up north. And they take this trip and uses his charming ways to invite her back over to his place. And as soon as they get through those doors of his home, he puts his hands on her neck and strangles her until she stops fighting for her life. And he takes up her limp body to the bathtub and chops off her hand as proof that the deed has been done. And he takes that hand and he places it in the back of the defendant's pickup truck. The rest of her body he takes with him in his boat out to Canyon Lake and drops